Today, let's talk about the introduction to graphic design. So first, let's define what is a graphic design. So when we say graphic design, it is the process and art of combining text and graphics and communicating an effective message in the design of logos, graphics, brochures, newsletters, posters, signs, and any other type of visual communication. There is no graphic design when we don't have the graphic designer. So, what is a graphic designer? So, graphic designers or graphic artists, they plan, analyze, and create visual solutions to communications problems. They decide the most effective way of getting a message across in print, electronic, and film media. Graphic designers develop magazines, newspapers, journals, corporate reports and publications, promotional displays and packaging, commercial displays and billboards, brochures, company logos and signs, and web pages and multimedia projects. Now, let's proceed on how to plan for graphic design. So, when we planning for graphic design, the goal is to make a material look good and appealing. To do this, you need to understand the art, the element, and the principles of design. First, let's talk about the art. So when we say art, these are the product of designers' creativity. So, for example, the posters, logos, brochures, magazines, newspapers, infographics, slide presentation, and so on. After the art, let's have the elements. So, elements are the different components in your designs, such as lines, shapes, colors, textures, size, value, and space. So first, let's talk about the lines. So everywhere you look, you see lines. In nature, you can see lines in tree branches, in a curving river, or in a spider's web. Next, the manufactured word provides example 2. So lines formed by wires, edges of buildings, and winding roads. Lines also can have many qualities. So they can be curved or straight, vertical, horizontal, or diagonal, thick or thin, smooth or rough, light or dark, and continuous or broken. Line also can be implied or real. A real line is one you can actually see in this picture, while an implied line is the suggestion for a line in this illustration. An implied line may also be suggested by a string of objects like this. After the line, let's talk about the shape. So when we say shape, shape is a two-dimensional object. It is flat. It has height and width but no depth. Shapes can be either geometric or organic. So, geometric shapes such as circles, squares, and rectangles are regular and precise. They can be measured. Then next, the organic shapes. So organic shapes are irregular, such as chisels, leaves, flowers, and etc. After the shape, we have here the color. Color is everywhere. In our clothes, the sky, trees, flowers, billboards designed to attract our attention, on the web, and on television. There are literally thousands of colors. from bright to dull, or what we call intensity, and light to dark, or what we call value. Colors are powerful. They can make objects seem to glow, to come forward and recede, or to appear bigger or smaller. Colors can also be symbolic, with meanings that change from culture to culture. A color can symbolize an object or thing, such as blue for water and green for grass, and the leaves of trees, or it may symbolize an emotion or idea, such as red for love, yellow for fear, and blue for sadness. A trained artist is familiar with all of these options and can select and combine colors to create a desired impression or to evoke a certain mood. Color is a property of light. When we say an object is red, we mean that its surface absorbs certain wavelengths of light that we call red. We identify the object as red in color. If all wavelengths of light are absorbed, we identify the color as black. If all wavelengths of color are reflected, we see white. Color has three characteristics, such as hue, value, and intensity. So when we say hue, it is actually the color we see, such as red. The next we have the value, which refers to the lightness and darkness of a hue. For example, we have here the maroon and pink. And the last one is the intensity. It is the brightness or dullness of a color. After the color, let's have the texture. So when we say texture, it is the tactile quality of a surface, such as rough, smooth, sticky, fuzzy, soft, or slick. Like line, texture can be real or implied. So when we say a real texture, it is one that can be felt, such as a piece of sandpaper, a woven mat, or animal fur. Then an implied texture is an illusion of texture created by an artist. Now, let's have the size. So when we say size, it is how big or small something is in scale to other objects. Scale refers to the process of making size relationship. Next, let's have the value. So value refers to the lightness and darkness of a color. Value is commonly known as shading of an object. So a value scale, such as this one, can show the full range of a color. This is accomplished by adding black to a color to make shades, or adding white to a color to make tints. Accomplished artists know that to make a drawing look as real as possible, they must show a full value range in their work. Now, let's have the space. So, space refers to the distance between shapes and forms, but it is best understood in design as white space or negative space, used to refer to the empty but often active areas that are void of visual elements. So those are the elements of a graphic design. Now, let's proceed to the basic principles of graphic design. So we have here first the balance. So when we say balance, there are three basic kinds of it. So first we have the symmetrical balance. It occurs when one side of an object or painting is identical or nearly to the other side. In nature, the human face and butterflies are examples. So, symmetry can create a sense of calmness and formality, but sometimes it can be visually boring. After the symmetrical balance, let's have the second kinds of balance. So we have here a symmetrical balance. So a symmetrical balance occurs when two sides are balanced but different. Small objects near the center may balance out large objects nearer to the middle, or large areas of light color or value may balance out small darker areas. So a symmetrical balance can be both subtle and exciting. Now let's have the third one. So when a design exhibits radial balance, its parts spread out from the center. The spokes of a wheel is an example of radial balance. Radial balance is also symmetrical and often produces a graceful rhythm or a sense of turning. So we are done with the three basic kinds of balance. Now let's proceed to the next principles of graphic design. So we have here contrast. The world around you is full of contrast. A red flower on a green plant, a smooth pond surrounded by a rough shoreline, a fragile spider web attached to a sturdy fence post. So we can say that contrast creates interest. Then, in an artwork, a strong contrast of light and dark will draw a viewer into a particular place in an artwork, as will contrast of rough and smooth areas, warm and cool areas, straight and curved lines, or plain and patterned areas. After the contrast, let's have the proportion. Proportion is the relative size of one thing compared to the size of something else. In the paintings below, compare the proportion of the objects in one painting with one another. Do the proportion seems correct? So it is you to observe. So after the proportion, let's have the last one. So we have here rhythm. Rhythm is a pattern of movement caused by colors, shapes, values, lines, and etc. that occur in organized repetition. If the size, shape, or color of the repeated units is the same, and if the distance between them remains constant, the rhythm is predictable and may even be monotonous. This is the type of rhythm you could find on wrapping paper or wallpaper. To add variety and visual excitement, an artist may change the size, color, or shape of the repeated units or vary the spacing between them. So those are only few basic principles of graphic design. So the others are in your book.